Well, good morning once again. My name is Zach. I think I already said that, but I'll repeat it one more time. And I am one of the pastors here. I'm so glad you guys are here this morning. What a great time of year. Football season is back. I don't know if your team won. Mine did, so there, deal with that. But it's one of my favorite times of the year. The weather was great. It was like football season. I went to a game, and it brought me back to when I was a kid. We used to go to the games all the time, and kids still do what they used to do, which is the game's going on, and then there's kids on the side. They have usually one football, and they're all playing this massive game of just tackling one another. One of my favorite things to do is we used to just give the ball to somebody, and that person would have to run around until everybody caught him. And then they would tackle him, put him on the ground, and it never failed that one kid would act like he got there just in time. He jumps on top. Then another kid jumps on top of that kid. And at first, the kid on the bottom's kind of laughing. Then more and more kids start to jump on. Then the kid on the bottom starts to freak out, starts to scream. And then more and more people jump on him, and eventually he starts crying and yelling. And it pretty much ends like that every time. Because it starts out fun, and then it escalates to this point of where he feels like he's suffocating. And, I know what that's like. I have 5 kids, and one of the things I love to do is I get on the floor, and then as soon as I lay on the floor in my house, one of the kids will jump on my back. And then it's like a sign to the other ones. And the first one's fine, and then the second one gets on, and then the third one gets on, and I think I'm strong. But after the fourth, and then the fifth, you can see how that when all this pressure's on you, they get you kind of contorted, and you're like, I could understand that if a few more things got on my back, I wouldn't be able to breathe, and I would be helpless. And it was a kind of a picture of how I think a lot of us are not in a dog pile, but in life. A lot of times we'll take on some responsibilities, like as students, sometimes there's schoolwork is one responsibility. That's one thing that's on your life. Then there's, can I date that person, or will that person date me? There's that part of your life that piles on. Schoolwork, expectations from parents. And then sometimes students get to where they feel like they have so much on their back, it's like they can't breathe. I can't breathe, I just wish I could get from here. And even as adults, we do that, right? Sometimes we take on a marriage, which is a great thing, but it puts expectations on our life. Sometimes we have work, that puts expectations on us. We have children, those expectations, not only the expectation of us raising the kids, but their hopes and dreams, and all their expectations are on top of us as well. We watch the news and we feel like we should be a certain type of citizen. There's a social responsibility. All those things are thrown on our back. And then we come to church and we feel like there's all these other things that I should be doing. And do you ever get to that point where you just feel like, I can't breathe? I just can't breathe under all this. I can't meet the expectations that are being expected of me at this time. I don't know if you've ever gotten in the car and you leave work and there's all these expectations here. You get in the car and you walk out and you take a deep breath and think, I've got a life at home, and I've got all these responsibilities, and I've got to do all this. And do you ever, maybe I'm the only one, but do you ever feel like you wish you could just go? Like I used to grow up parents had a farm. When I was in high school and I felt all these pressures, what I would do is I would get in my truck, and this sounds like a country song, maybe it is, and I would drive, put the windows down, and just go on a dirt road. And then I would go to my parents' farm, and I'd get in the middle of a field, and I would park and put the tailgate down, and I would just sit there. And I would look at the expanse of all that was before me, and I would think, it just felt like all my problems were back there, and it felt like I could breathe once again. And sometimes when I feel like life has just got so many pressures on me, I get in the car and I think the same thing. I wish I could just go sit at the farm for a bit and breathe, because I'm not measuring up to the expectations I've put on myself and that other people have put on me, and I just can't measure up. I don't know if you've ever felt like that, like you're in a dog pile in this world and you can't breathe. Maybe you don't want to flee to a farm, maybe you want to flee to the beach. If I could just get a 7-day vacation, I want to go on a cruise, if I could go to a spa, if I could do this, if I could just get away, then I could breathe once again. Maybe I'm the only one, but I doubt it. Because of so many people I talk to, they feel like they're not meeting the expectations in their life. They feel this incredible pressure. And what do we do when we're in that place? And what does God want us to do, more importantly? But here's the good news about the Bible is what's true of us in this time was true in first century as well, when Jesus was around. I mean, they didn't have the news, but if they would have seen the news, they would have seen a foreign power had occupied them. And it was putting all these expectations on them of how they should be a citizen. They went to the temple and they had all the expectations and all the rules and regulations, just like us. When we go to church, we feel like they got them all dumped on them as well. And I'm sure they had problems putting food on the table at times, and I'm sure there were those stresses as well. It doesn't say it, but I'm sure a lot of marriages had struggles even back then, right? And they had kids. They had the same hopes and dreams that we have for our children. And they felt that same pressure, and I know that because I read in Matthew 9. If you want to follow along, you can. In Matthew 9:35, it's on the screen as well. Jesus was going through these cities and villages, and he was teaching in the synagogues, and he was proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom, and he was healing every disease and every affliction. And when he saw the crowds, listen to this, when he saw the crowds, he had compassion for them because they were harassed and they were helpless like sheep without a shepherd. They were helpless and they were harassed like sheep without a shepherd. They probably felt a lot like us, harassed by all the expectations of this world. They felt helpless to meet those expectations. Do you ever get so many pressures that you just don't even know what to do? I would do it if you just tell me what to do, but I don't know which way to go in my life. Do you ever feel like a lost sheep needing some direction? They did too. And they were there, and when Jesus saw them, and when he sees you, if you're in that state right now, if you are harassed and helpless and feel like you just can't measure up in this world, then I want you to know that when Jesus saw them, he had compassion for them. And he has compassion for you right now. And this isn't just like he just feels for you. No, this is like a gut level, like it hurts him. He's in agony when he sees people hurting. That's why the Psalms say, the Lord is close to the brokenhearted, and he saves those who are crushed in spirit. I mean, if you're that person, he's looking at you right now and he's saying, I love you. I have compassion for you. If you wake up and don't want to get out of bed, the Lord sees you. And he wants to know that he feels for you. And why do I know that? It says he proclaimed the gospel of the kingdom. And I want to just remind us of something that we probably already know, because we often need to be reminded more than instructed. That when Jesus came, he was announcing, repent, the kingdom of God is near. He talked about this kingdom. And the kingdom is not like a geographical region. It's not like Paris, France, he's not saying that this region is here. He's saying a rule and a reign is here. The good news of the kingdom, this rule and reign is here because there's another kingdom that goes on. That's why when the Lord's Prayer, he says, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven, your kingdom come. Do you remember that? I switched those words, but you know what I mean. Because there's a kingdom here, and it says in 2 Corinthians 4:4, I want to remind you this, that there's a God of this world. And it's Satan. It's the opposer. He's under God's sovereignty, but for a time, it appears that he has a kingdom here. And he has a kingdom agenda as well. 1 John 5:19 says that the world lies in the power of the evil one. There's a kingdom here, and the opposer is Satan, and Satan has a plan for each and every one of us. It's to leave us harassed and helpless. In John 10:10, it talks about him wanting to steal, kill, and destroy. And that's his mission. And the world system is one that wants to place more and more responsibilities and tell us, these are all the things that make you happy, and then these are all the things you should be doing, and all those pressures come in, and Satan loves it when we buy into the systems of this world. I mean, he loves it because it kills us. He also loves it when we take even really good things in our life, even family, and exalt them to the primary place in our life. When we take our kids' dreams and expectations and then we put them before God, Satan loves that because that's not a place our kids were ever supposed to be. The enemy loves it when we take our marriage and we think this is the only person that can complete me. And we do everything we can and we don't get that love back. We feel crushed and we feel broken. And he loves it because we've taken a great thing and exalted it to the ultimate thing. But that's not the place our marriages were ever supposed to have. It's like that kid who loves a butterfly and grabs it, and then for their love of it, they put it in their hand and they smash it because they love it so much. Like my kids who grab worms. My girls love worms, and I don't know why. But they take worms out of the dirt, and they take them, they squeeze them, they stretch them, and I'm like, put them down, man. And they take them, and they put them on the concrete, take them out of where they were ever most supposed to be, and they end up killing them. For their love of these things, they end up killing it. And you know what Satan, the opposer, is trying to get us to do is to take these good things and love them so much that it ends up killing us. Even these really, really good things. Put them in that place, and they just destroy us. So when Jesus sees these people in Matthew 9, he sees people who are helpless, harassed, like sheep without a shepherd. And usually when we see people who are harassed and helpless, and if you're like me, sometimes we see burdens. People that are just going to suck our time and energy. I already have enough of my own stuff. I can't deal with other people who are helpless and harassed. I'm that person. So I can't take that burden on. But praise be to God that he's not like that. That he doesn't see as we see. When he looks at people who are in need, he has compassion for them, and he doesn't see them as a pity to be avoided, but a people to be engaged. It says this in verse 37. He said to his disciples, "The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few." See, when Jesus sees these broken, hurting people, he sees a lot of people that are in need of him, and he sees a harvest field that he wants to go out and he wants to rescue them from the kingdom of this world. It's a rescue mission. He wants to take his kingdom and pull them out of this worldly system which is trying to kill us, and he wants to pull them out. He sees this harvest field, and he wants to pull them in. And so he says, "Therefore pray to the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest." It's the Lord's harvest. But he also wants people to go out. And my mom worked at like I said, we dream of tranquility in life. When we want to get away, we think of a spa or a beach or a mountain or a farm if you're a country boy. But we long for this earthly tranquility. But I lost my train of thought. God doesn't see it like that. Because in the harvest, like I said, my mom worked at a feed store, and what I realized about this feed store was in the harvest time, you would see people coming into the scales to weigh their harvest. You didn't see a bunch of people who worked less. You saw a bunch of people who came in, and they had been working hard from sun up to sundown, but every time you saw them, there was a smile on their face because it was harvest season. They had been working all year for this moment, and it came, and it was hard work. But they knew that this was going to provide flourishing for their family. The harvest wasn't less work, it was more, but it was work that sustained their family. My dad was an accountant. He had a harvest season. CPA, I guess. And he had the first couple of months. He didn't work less in the harvest time. He actually worked more. But that working in that harvest time provided sustenance and flourishing for our family. If he didn't have the harvest, we wouldn't have been able to be around. And the point I'm trying to make is God doesn't call us into earthly tranquility. He calls us in to be harvest workers. And in that, it's more work, but it's a different kind of work. It's a kind of work that causes flourishing in our life. Because what I don't want to do this morning is tell you, you should be doing all of this, and I want you to feel this weight on you. What I want you to do is I want you to hear about the Lord of the harvest and how he's created us to be. But it doesn't involve beaches, farms, spas. because it goes on, and this is the verse, in chapter 10, chapter 10, he sends out these harvest workers. And why do I know the harvest is tough work? Because when he sent out the 12, he said, I'm going to give you this authority. You know how I was healing people and I was bringing the afflicted to healing? Well, I want to give you the authority to do that, and I want you to announce the kingdom. I don't want you to take anything with you, and people are going to hate you. They're going to bring you before. Don't worry about what to say. I'll tell you what to say. And, your brother, your sister, they're all going to be against you. But this is the harvest work. I want you to go into towns, and I want you to look for people of peace. And if they accept you, great. If they don't, I want you to dust the dirt off your feet. So this harvest time seems very difficult. And this is the verse that struck me right here. In verse 34, at the end of this, it's called the mission discourse, when Jesus tells them about their mission. At the very end of it, it says this: don't think that I've come to bring peace to the earth. I didn't come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to set a man against his father, and a daughter against his mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a person's enemies will be those in his own household. When I first read that, do you ever read, I hope you read the Bible, but when you do, I hope you get to the point where sometimes the words just shock you. Because, you read in Luke 2, when the angels announce Jesus coming, they say, peace on earth. And Isaiah talks about Jesus being the Prince of Peace. Well, how's he the Prince of Peace? And yet he says, I didn't come to bring peace on earth. I didn't come to bring peace, but a sword. That's a hard statement. And it made me stop in my tracks, because these people, what he was talking to, were these people that longed for the earthly peace. See, Romans 5:1 says this: therefore, since we have been justified by faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ. See, Jesus didn't come to provide earthly peace, earthly tranquility at that time. He came to provide soul peace and soul tranquility, a rightness with God, a steel in your spine that allows you to stand up underneath all this stuff. Because he says, I didn't come to bring peace on earth, because the people in that day, what were they longing for? If you know the story, they were longing for this time when the Messiah would come, and he would set up this kingdom on earth, and he would overthrow the Roman government. He would set up this peaceful kingdom on earth, and he would rule and reign right there. And their longing was for, bring earthly peace. Bring it now, and come. And he's saying, I didn't come to bring earthly peace right now. I came to bring a sword. I came to divide people. The sword is a sign of division. Like it talks about in Hebrews 4, the Bible is a double-edged sword between soul and spirit, joint and marrow, judging the thoughts and intentions of the heart. The sword is to come to divide things. And he says, in that day, what was the most important thing? One of the greatest gifts he had given that nation. It's not like our world where we live individualistically. It's just like me and mine. No, this was a culture in which family was exalted to the highest place. They all lived together. The family was one of the greatest blessings God has given us, but it was something in their culture that it was it. It wasn't it was we as a family. And he's coming to say, even this blessing that I gave you, if you love it too much, I'm going to divide it from you. Because no other thing, even a good thing, cannot be an ultimate thing. I came to bring a sword and divide. Man against his father, daughter against her mother, daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. But I understand what that's like. I don't know if you understand what that's like just yet. But I totally understand that sometimes the hopes and dreams I have for my children are things I could easily put before the Lord. I could easily put away my quiet time, my time with the Lord, to get my kid to the practice or to work on his homework so that he'd have this future that I didn't have. Or I could easily see putting a marriage before the Lord, because who doesn't want to be loved right here, right now? When the one we should be loving is unseen and he's eternal. But sometimes we just want it now. I could easily see putting those things before. And he says, you can't put those things before, because they will just press down on you. They're not the thing that can sustain you. Only one thing can sustain you. And so I've come to divide those loyalties to show you that there's only one true loyalty. It says, whoever loves their father and mother more than me is not worthy of me. That's a hard word. And whoever loves their son and daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And sometimes I just think, I can't do that. You ever feel like you just can't, that just feels like something I can't possibly do. It's hard for me not to love those things more. It's hard for me to put away. I know I shouldn't feel this way about my body image, and I know it's not more important than my relationship with God, but I can't not do it. Or I know I shouldn't do this. I know God's telling me to put it away and to put him first, but I just can't do it. I read this story, and sometimes the story is better than any way that I could possibly say it, about how God divides. There's a story in The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. You guys read that book? Well, it's actually in the Chronicles of Narnia. It's in the Voyage of the Dawn Treader. And there's this little boy, his name's Eustace. And you probably have heard this story before. Eustace is a chubby little boy that no one likes, and he's greedy, and he's mean, and he's rotten. He's just a rotten kid. No one likes him. They land on this island, right? And Eustace goes off by himself, and he discovers this treasure. And he's like, now I can be the richest person in Narnia. He puts on this little gold band on his arm, and he lies down dreaming of all this stuff will provide for me. In his heart, he's just greedy and hoarding towards this stuff and doesn't want to share it with anyone. And he falls asleep, and when he wakes up in the story, he's a dragon. His outward appearance took on his inner condition of his heart. Became knobby, nasty, scaly. His insides became on the outside, and he was this dragon. And the ring that had been on his arm was now on his leg, and it was causing such pain in his life. And he was cut off from others that he loved. Everyone was scared of him now, and now he was a dragon. He wasn't really a man anymore. He wasn't a boy anymore, and he wants to be a boy, and so he starts to cry these tears, these hot dragon tears that start pouring down his face. And in the story, a lion, who represents the Christ